The goal of the overall project is to provide an integrative approach to the study of human capital externalities and the mechanisms of its persistence, particularly across generation. And it uses historical context of the creation of the school to make assumptions about cohort selection and location selection of the school being exogenous, and exploit the timing and location of colonial institution as a two-step hierarchical design. The two big questions were, what were the externalities that colonial could have on the first three generations in Benin and soon in Nigeria? What are the mechanisms? Is it because those who are non-educated have labor market opportunities, higher income, as a result, they send their kids to school? Is it because of social networks that generates high aspiration? Is it because those educated redistributed to those who were not educated, and this helps the outcome, economic and social outcome? Or is it because education creates a loss of control, empowerment, as we have discussed earlier? Basically, we use the process, our information about the process leading to the school being created to select similar schools in the country. So places that are further inland, at 100 kilometers, and then people with places with no prior European settlements or institutions. So, in Zainado, in Benin, I selected 4 sites. And what is also extremely innovative here is the sampling procedure. So first, for those who were educated, we were able to find school records or using interviews to identify children who went to that school, the first 3 cohorts. And then we use backward sampling, like interviewing the living, interviewing the descendants to get information about their grandparents. And we divided, the subject living close to the school, 7 kilometers or less, into 2 categories. Type 1 is where in the village there is at least one person who have been to school. So the school is nearby, but someone in the neighborhoods have been to school. And then places close to the school with no one in the village paid school, that type 2. Okay, and then control are places that are 7 to 20 kilometers away from the school, and we use backward sampling to actually select the people, and then use social demographic survey, to have information not only about the first generation. Now, for the second generation, the third generation, for instance, we make sure that in place, particularly in the families, polygamous families, that the children of all the wives are represented. And then we list all the children of each wife, select 7 of them, make sure that the firstborn child is in the sample, and ensure also gender proportionality. It's a very representative sample of the community where the school was and the communities nearby. Here is a picture of the first 2 cohorts of the school in my hometown, Zainado. We have a list. We have the school archives with a list of all the children. So, and as you can see from here, from this table, clearly those who went to school are far less likely to be subsistence farmer. And you can see a gap between those living in the village with school, like here, and village village without school. And along all econ, politics, networks measure, education already have a very big impact on the first generation. Now, when you look at the second generation, the gap shrunk considerably. You can see primary school, the gap between children of those whose parents have been to school and parents did not go to school, the gap has drastically shrunk. So you have social mobility in general, but particularly among those living near a school or near someone who has been to school. Okay, when you look at the income mobility in the third generation, you can see that in the third generation, those whose parents are low income have nearly 70% chance of doing better than their parents, as opposed to 40 for children coming from a low-income family in a controlled place. They are placed with no colonial school, if you will. Okay, so now the most important table is this one, because if you actually look at the mobility by category, by treated individual, those whose grandparents have been to school, those whose grandparents live near a school or living near someone who has been to school, you see that the most significant mobility is by those whose grandparents did not go to school but live near someone who had been to school. So it shows that second generation, it's the gap between treatment 2 and control shrunk. Third generation, the gap between treatment 1 and treatment 2 shrunk to the point where even treatment 2 did better than treatment 1. So across generation, not only mobility of those who were only whose grandparents were indirectly exposed to education was very significant. The driver of mobility for the third generation is attitude. So here, the fact that your parents did better than your grandparents, that has an effect on mental health, on work ethics, self-reliance, and life outlook. So it's the behavioral mechanism for mobility is really what I think is very, very important.